This is why, once the House of Commons resumes this fall, Conservatives will introduce legislation to amend the Criminal Code to rectify this issue.
Well, if you thought Canada was broken, I have some news for you. It's way worse than what you thought. See, it's difficult in Canada to keep tabs on all the things that are wrong with this country because there are so many. It's an ecosystem, but instead of a give and take or add and subtract kind of system, it's just adding. Like we just keep adding and piling on things that are wrong, and we're never actually fixing them thanks to the Liberals. So the Conservatives are now proposing something that is going to fix a big problem in Canada. You see, immigrants that come here like on visas, temporary foreign workers, all that stuff, you're in the immigration system, right? And if you commit a crime in Canada, there's like a threshold, you know, you get 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, whatever it is. But judges in Canada are more lenient and progressive, go figure, than other countries around the world. And so if somebody commits, I don't know, let's just hypothetically say murder. Like if an immigrant or someone like he's here on a visa commits, you know, a form of murder, instead of getting several years in jail, which would, you know, be customary and kind of expected, they might get less than 6 months, because anything above 6 months would mean immediate deportation, and judges take that into consideration when making the final call on what the punishment should be. So yes, immigration, people who immigrate here get lesser or more lenient sentencing than Canadian citizens at times, which is still pretty messed up. So we're going to be taking a look at that a little bit later in this video. We're also going to be highlighting what's going on with the wildfires on the East Coast and the Air Canada strike. I almost said Canada Post. There's just something going on with like Canadian subsidized, you know, companies that keep going on strike. But I just want to like hook you in to this. Okay. I want you to I want to plant the seed because we're going to come back to this in about 10 or 15 minutes. Yes or no? That's on ChatGPT 5. Yes or no? In Canada, do judges reduce sentencing of immigrants in order to lessen the impact of their immigration status? Yes, in some cases, Canadian judges have reduced sentences for non-citizens if a longer sentence would trigger automatic immigration consequences, such as deportation. Now, it goes on to say that this isn't a blanket rule, but sentencing principles in Canada allow judges to consider collateral consequences, which is insane. And you might be wondering, well, is this a progressive stance for Canada compared to other countries, for Canadian officials or judges to be more lenient on people that are outsiders? Well, ChatGPT said, yes, compared to many countries, Canada's willingness to consider immigration consequences at sentencing is relatively progressive, especially when contrasted with jurisdictions like the US, where judges generally have no discretion to adjust sentences to avoid deportation once statutory triggers are met. So yeah, Canada never ceases to amaze us for all of the wrong reasons. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I really want to encourage you guys to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. Now, we're going to start off, like I said, with the fires, with Air Canada's, you know, recent or right now currently happening strike, because it's impacting hundreds of thousands of people's flights. And then we're going to finalize the video with this immigration stuff, because there is some hope. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not like, oh, this has to be the way it is forever. There's actually something that the Conservatives are trying to do in order to fix that. Go figure, huh? It's the Conservatives always trying to, you know, fix the mess that the Liberals have caused. Anyways, that's a whole rant that I can't get started on. So let's just move on to what's going on with the fire, shall we?
Now to our other top story, the Newfoundland and Labrador government updating the wildfire situation earlier this morning. Premier John Hogan saying that he spoke with the Prime Minister last night and received assurances that the federal government will help the province in any way it can.
they have, and they will continue to provide more support for logistics as we look at setting up further evacuation centers in the event it's needed. Firefighter support and transportation support, which includes transportation to and from the sites and transportation for firefighters as well.
Hogan adding that there are no new evacuation orders or alerts today. On Tuesday, residents of a section of the town of Paradise were ordered to evacuate because of the Paddy's Pond fire. The much larger Kingston fire continues to grow and now covers roughly 64 square kilometers. A regional state of emergency remains in effect for a portion of Bay de Verde Peninsula, the town of Conception Bay South, the town of Paradise, and parts of St. John's. Evacuation orders have been issued for parts of Newfoundland, including the town of Paradise. And joining me now is the mayor of Paradise, Dan Bobbitt. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with
Paradise
us.
City, where
Walk
the
us
grass
through what's
is
happening
green,
right now in your community. How close is the fire to you?
Take me home.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's fairly close. The area that we evacuated last evening and into the night, I guess, was the closest to it. That was a portion of our town that was closest to the northern edge of the fire. It showed some instability, I guess, and fires are unstable, obviously, but it's been monitored by officials, and the call was made to evacuate a section of Three Island Pond. Everybody was evacuated with the assistance of the police, RNC, Rover Search and Rescue, and town staff, and got everybody out, and everybody was orderly fashion, and everybody was out successful.
It sounds, Mr. Mayor, like everybody is cooperating, everybody is doing what they can to help their neighbors.
Absolutely. We're all working together. Obviously there's a certain amount of anxiety and unsettledness about this.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously when you're into an emergency evacuation, in this case for a small section of town, but we do have a large portion of our town, which includes about 4,500 residents that are still under evacuation preparedness. That is, they're still under evacuation preparedness.
There's a lot of videos right now circulating of these like water bombers going down, hovering or just skimming the top of lakes, scooping up the water, and then going all in one frame, in one shot, and then dropping it on a fire, coming back, rinse and repeat. And to be honest, it's freaking badass, and it's making people patriotic, and it's not a politicized thing, right? Like water bombers is dope. Like, hey, yeah, there's fires. A lot of people's homes are probably going to be destroyed because of this. Let's fucking fight this, and let's cheer on the dudes and women, right? There's probably not too many women do it, but let's cheer on the people around, whatever. Let's be inclusive. Let's cheer on the people that are doing this, mostly men. Let's cheer on the people that are doing this because it is badass. Now, where it becomes politicized is these badass planes, these water bombers that we, need. We could have had more. That's where it becomes politicized. Is we could have had so many more, but we've, given money to help other people's problems, like African pooping on beaches and putting up signs in Ukraine and Gaza. And I just hope I'm not overly optimistic. In fact, I'm pessimistically hoping that people can wake up to the fact that maybe we need to stop foreign aid and we need to work on our own country's aid, like this water bombers, because our country is definitely at risk of this happening more and more, getting worse every year.
And to be ready at a moment's notice, and to have their kit bags or to ready whatever's in it they need, medications, documents, to be ready to leave their homes. So it's still a serious situation. The fire, as the report you mentioned earlier, the province reported this morning, the fire hasn't grown, but it's still not in a stable situation, obviously. So we're still under the evacuation preparedness alert, and our thoughts are with our residents. Obviously, there is a certain amount of anxiety associated with a fire like this, and we've had an extremely, extremely dry summer. And today and yesterday it was a 30-degree temperature, so it's significant.
Yeah, conditions are ripe. I want to ask you, lastly, Mayor, about resources. Do you feel like there are enough?
Yes, I mean, I want a big shout out to the first responders that are on the ground. There's more resources coming. According to the news conference you mentioned earlier, the Premier says there's more resources coming. But there's resources in play. That we have several fires on the go throughout the province, and I commend the firefighters as well for their service. And they're going into a fire, and everybody else is leaving it. So it's a serious situation. I do believe that the crews on the ground are doing their best to fight this fire with the resources they have, and we got more resources coming. So that's the good news.
It's good to hear that they have more resources coming, but of course, we're all kind of thinking that we would have way more resources if we managed our money properly, but that's a story for another day. Tomorrow, probably. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Are you personally affected by these fires on the East Coast, or do you know someone that is? Drop your stories down below, and let's just have a discussion about it, because it'd be interesting for people that are actually boots on the ground to chime in on what actually is happening there without the media intervening in, the translation of it all. And now we're talking about intervening. We got to take a look at what's going on with Air Canada, because they are, causing a bit of a ruckus with transportation here.
Begin with breaking news from Air Canada. The airline says it will start canceling flights tomorrow to allow for an orderly shutdown of operations. This, as Canada's largest airline faces a potential strike by flight attendants. All flights by Air Canada and Air Canada Rouge will be grounded by the weekend. Customers whose flights are canceled can get a full refund. The decision follows a 72-hour strike notice coming from the union representing 10,000 flight attendants. In response, Air Canada issued a lockout notice for early Saturday morning. The airline said it reached an impasse in talks after the union declined to enter a binding arbitration process. The union says nothing has changed on their end.
Our members.
So a crazy thing to know about this union strike is the union voted on it, right? And if you disagree with the strike, but the union voted on the fact that yes, they are going on strike. If you're part of that union, you have to strike. You're mandated to strike. If you go against the strike, your union dues and your fees are probably going to go up, and they will essentially make your life miserable. So keep that in mind. Just because a lot of the employees are on striking and a lot of people did vote for this strike to happen, not every employee actually wants to strike. But I do think that the voting turnout was like 98 or 99%. But just know there's a couple people out there that are like, I don't want to do this, and now they are forced to be doing it. That's the way unions work in Canada.
Are still going to work. Our members are still there greeting customers, still doing the unpaid portions at the beginning, and still attempting to get people to their destination as long as the planes are flying. There's nothing at this time that we've said, okay, stop doing. So it should be business as usual from the employee standpoint.
The Canadian Federation of Business today calling on the airline and the union to resolve the issue with no disruption to service. Failing that, they're calling on Ottawa to immediately intervene to avoid the significant economic damage a strike would have on the Canadian economy, which is already feeling the impact from the ongoing tariff dispute with the United States. With me now to discuss is Marty Firestone. He's president of Travel Secure Incorporated. Marty, hello to you. Thank
Canadian media, they can't help, but every chance they get, it's got to be something to do with tariffs and America, or specifically Trump. It's so weird. I get that the economy is going to feel some stress from the Air Canada strike. I get that. But why even mention that's in conjunction with the tariffs? Oh my God, man. It's just this weird little subtle programming of America's bad, Trump is bad. That's how I view it. That's just how I could be wrong. I could be an idiot. I am an idiot, but that's how I view it.
you so much for being with us. Important conversation that we need to have. What do passengers now need to know if they were flying on Air Canada, which has just issued the statement saying that they're going to change the schedule, and the flight attendants say that they're on a 72-hour strike notice?
Yeah, quite frankly, I'm surprised it went this far. I thought we'd have a settlement prior to this decision. And now you've got them wanting to strike, Air Canada wanting to lock out. And who's kidding who? This isn't about Saturday morning anymore. This is about tomorrow, because quite frankly, they don't want planes scattered all over the world. So they're going to make adjustments starting tomorrow with cancellations and disruptions so that, again, they have all the planes in one spot should there be a strike. Travelers have got a lot of concerns. Two kinds of travelers. The ones leaving, they're going to be in a situation where how can they get to that cruise ship that they already paid all their monies for and it's non-refundable? They're going to be out monies a lot more than airfare. And then you've got the ones out of the country who can't get back. They're going to have additional nights at hotel, new airfare to get back home. So quite frankly, it's one big mess.
Okay, so if you were, for example, away from home right now and you had an Air Canada flight booked within the next couple of days, what would you do, Marty?
Go with a different company.
Quite frankly, I'd be looking for a non-refundable, I should say a refundable flight with a competitive airline to get me out of wherever I am and back home. Because quite frankly, if they should cancel or have a strike, then you can get rid of the ticket and get your monies back. And if they do go on strike, weren't you the smarter one for finding a ticket? So really important that you look for a competitive ticket, competitive airline, a refundable ticket.
Okay, ASAP. Now, what about if you've already booked with Air Canada? Will you get your money back?
Yeah.
100%. That's the simplest part of this whole problem, and you will get your monies back if they cannot find you another seat with a competitive airline within 48 hours. And who's kidding who? They're not going to, because quite frankly, hundreds of thousands of people would be going for that option, and they're not 100,000 seats available. So that's not going to work.
Right?
So
just
the
give the
bottom
money
line is
back,
if they can't find
process.
you a seat and they're not going to, you're going to get a refund of all your monies that you paid. But that does not cover you for the cost of where you were going, the hotel, the Airbnb, the cruise ship. All that's going to be lost and out of your pocket.
So you say you're surprised that a deal hasn't been reached. How come?
I believe the normal bargaining process is just what it was up until last night at 12:30, when they then called the strike notice, and then Air Canada rebutted with a lockout. That's now getting very, very serious. Where at the beginning, I really felt they would come to some kind of a decision. Now our only hopes are the next 3 days, this really pushes them to make a decision, or ultimately does the government intercede and do a back to work scenario. But to have this take place on Saturday, and let me remind you, even if it does get settled at 11:59 on Saturday morning, there's planes that didn't go where they were supposed to. There are people that were supposed to come back to Canada. There will be no planes there. So it's going to be a domino effect, and they will not get back to Canada, or people will not leave on the day they were supposed to, even as of tomorrow.
So in other words, Marty, just to conclude, you're telling us that the disruption has already started.
It has. There's no question. There was no time left. It's basically underway. It will be tomorrow. I have one client that already called me and received a letter, I should say an email from Air Canada advising them of a different flight time, which is just the beginning of how it's going to all work if we get into tomorrow with no settlement.
Okay, great advice from you. Marty Firestone is the president of Travel Secure Incorporated.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. I do know that getting money back from Air Canada, at least in different scenarios, is, very difficult. It happens, but refunds with that airline takes a very, very long time. Is this going to be a different situation? I wish I could say yes, but I don't know. I really don't. And it's affecting a lot of people. A lot of people have been, their flights have been moved around, have been already canceled ahead of this. Like, this is going to have some pretty serious impact. So let me know in the comments. Do you even like Air Canada? Do you think that we should have more competition for airlines in this country? Looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say. And now we got to take a look at what the hell's going on with immigration in this country, specifically around our laws and judicial system, because getting back to my long extended intro, which is probably record breaking on this channel, judges give or can give lesser sentences to immigrants in order to, not deport them or have any sort of issue with their immigration files. And to bring forward this case, you have Michelle Rempel Garner. I thought it would have been Pierre Poilievre doing this, but no, Michelle is in Parliament. I guess Pierre is in Alberta campaigning. He's got an election on Monday. So Michelle is putting forward this and saying that once Parliament resumes, the Conservatives are full steam ahead to get these laws changed.
Good morning on a very wet Ottawa morning, one in which I found myself without an umbrella about 30 seconds ago. So, well, good morning, everyone. Today I'm announcing that Conservatives will introduce legislation to amend the criminal code and restore the value of Canadian citizenship by ending the practice of judges considering a non-citizen's immigration status in sentencing. Since 2013, a Supreme Court ruling has permitted judges to consider immigration status when sentencing. This has been seen in several recent high-profile cases. For example, a permanent resident received a conditional sentence after being convicted of trying to purchase sexual services from a 15-year-old, as a stronger penalty would have hindered him and his wife from obtaining Canadian citizenship. Another non-citizen in Canada on a visitor's permit was convicted twice of groping an 18-year-old woman's genitals at a bar, yet received a discharge to avoid a permanent criminal record and to allow for an appeal of their deportation. Anyone seeking residence or citizenship in Canada has responsibilities as well as rights. When it comes to sentencing non-citizens, Canada has essentially adopted a form of two-tier justice where judges can and have given lighter sentences to individuals who are non-citizens by virtue of this ruling. This offends all principles of fairness that should be foundational to our justice system. This is why, once the House of Commons resumes this fall, Conservatives will introduce legislation to amend the criminal code to rectify this issue. Our bill will add a section after Section 718.202 of the Criminal Code, which will expressly outline that any potential impact of a sentence on the immigration status of a convicted non-citizen offender or that of their family members should not be taken into consideration by a judge when issuing a sentence. I want to be very clear. The vast majority of Canada's immigrants and temporary residents abide by our law. But removing non-citizens who have been convicted of serious crimes is a no-brainer, and it's one which the Liberals have failed to act upon.
You would think, if you just kind of use some common sense, you would think that foreigners would be scrutinized by the law more heavily than natural born citizens, right? That's how I viewed it. Like, if you go to Europe, like parts of Europe, and you commit like a crime like jaywalking or something, or whatever, like it's just a small little like a speeding ticket, bro, you're not getting off. They're not gonna just let you off with a warning. You're a traveler, you're a tourist, you're a foreigner to that country, and you're not playing by the rules. You didn't read the terms of service on your flight in or whatever it was. That's your fault and your prerogative. Pay up, boy. Pay up, right? If you don't want to do the time, don't do the crime. Like that's just how I would have thought it was going. But this is the problem with Canada, is if you're not paying attention, it does not go the way that you would just organically think. And once you start paying attention to our laws, to our politics, man, it's a rabbit hole, because you realize, like, dude, Canada's a fucked up place. Sorry for swearing, but Canada is so messed up. People are just like immigrants, foreigners get lesser sentences than natural born citizens. I don't know in what common sense world that actually makes sense. Oh, I'm sorry, it affects your deportation, and now all of a sudden you got to go back to where you came from. Well, you should have thought about that before you committed a serious crime. My goodness, man.
By contrast, Conservatives will always fight to protect Canadians, the value of our citizenship, and the safety of every person who lives here. Becoming a Canadian is a privilege, not a right. Thank you. Logistically, you already...
I like that. I like that very much. Becoming Canadian is a privilege, not a right. But Mark Carney, well, I guess Mark Carney is fairly new, but the Trudeau Liberals, that whole thing has been reversed, right? It's a right, not a privilege to be Canadian. Everybody is welcome. Come on in, right? Man, our country is just a disaster, a freaking disaster.
have a private member still on notice about online harms. Is that one taking a back burner to bring this forward, or is another Conservative MP going to present this PLP?
Stay tuned until the fall.
And on the by-election, I'm just curious, do you think that Pierre Poilievre needs to have at least 80% vote in that to maintain caucus support?
Well, what I can say is I was out in Battle River Crowfoot last weekend, and there was a lot of enthusiasm and support for both him and our party on the doors. I think that the residents of that area are, knowing them well, some of the people who have been most let down by the Liberal government, and where our party's message and Pierre's message has resonated. So he's working hard, and it's nice to see the uptake from that community.
She didn't want the answer. Yo, Michelle is not a Pierre fan. In 2022, during Pierre Poilievre's leadership campaign, Michelle actually said that if Pierre Poilievre wins the leadership campaign, that she is she's not going to be a Conservative MP and she's going to step down. And of course, she didn't step down, but she was pushing for Jean Charest. Pierre Poilievre, if he doesn't win by a larger percentage than what Damien Kirk won, then that shows that changes need to be made. It's nothing against Pierre, right? Pierre did a phenomenal job, but there's a time and place for people, and unfortunately, when your opponents do a substitution the way that they did, like just think of sports, right? You're playing one sporting team versus the other sporting team, and all of a sudden they're substituting maybe their center or their left wing player, right? You know, not politics left wing, as in like hockey, left wing, right wing, right? Okay, they're moving people around. You have to adapt to that, and Canada, the Conservatives are not fully adapting, not yet, at least.
The bans that are in place on hiking and other recreational activities in forested areas in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, given the wildfire considerations right now?
Sure. Well, first of all, the fear that people experience during wildfire season is something that a lot of Canadians know. You know, I think back to what happened in Jasper National Park last year as an Albertan, and so my hearts are with them and their concern, and also with the firefighters and first responders who put their lives in harm's way during these situations. But I also think about the utter lack of action from the federal government on the issue of forest fires. I think it's four seasons ago now, 4 full wildfire seasons ago, the Liberals promised more water bombers, more firefighters. Where are they? The other thing is that my Conservative colleague Mark Dalton put forward a bill to increase the penalties for people who commit arson that causes a wildfire. So these are both measures that could have prevented and contained wildfire, and the Liberals have done nothing. So wait, my concern is this.
I do like this. I like how the Conservatives have been a little bit more, hey, reporter, shut the hell up. I'm not done talking, right? Because, you know, of course, that's a more Republican trait, and I appreciate that.
Whenever there's a major crisis, what the Liberal government has done by their inaction has conditioned Canadians to expect that the only response they can see out of their federal government is to restrict their movement. And again, I understand that I understand the fear and concern of people in the Maritimes right now, but that the only response they get from their federal government is a tacit, well, I guess you're going to have to restrict your movement. That's not right. So, you know, today we're calling upon the federal government to actually get serious about this issue, pass our bill, put forward the resources that they promised so that Canadians aren't put into this situation. I see this as a lack of responsibility on the federal government.
Should the federal government intervene to stop an Air Canada work stoppage?
You know, I was really excited to see our party leader, Pierre Poilievre, come out and re-emphasize the need for legislation that we put forward in the last session. My colleague, Leanne Rood, put forward a bill regarding one of the flight attendants' key concerns, which is unpaid wages for while they're performing duties that are essential to passenger safety. And as somebody who is a frequent flyer, I think they should be paid for that too. So I hope that the union and management can come to an agreement on this, but certainly the principles that were contained in that bill last year are things that we stand behind as a party.
Just on the by-election, you didn't answer specifically. Does he need to maintain around 80% support for caucus to still back him? Is there any concern that he's been out of the conversation too long?
I want to be very clear. Our caucus supports our leader, Pierre Poilievre.
Not what was
my
asked.
membership, my board supports him. And when I was out on the doors in Battle River Crowfoot, there's a lot of support for him too. So that's what I'm focused on. And again, he's got a very strong team behind him who, supports what he's doing and his commitment after, it's been a long and tiring year. So
this is the thing with politics. If you don't get a simple, remember Pierre in the House of Canada, right, against Trudeau, yes or no, do you support this? And Trudeau would get up. Well, as it turns out that Canada was dated back to this far along, like, what the hell are you talking about? Yes or no? Do you support this? And now we're seeing the shattering that's taking place within the Conservative Party. This doesn't make me happy, right? But what needs to happen with the Conservative Party, and this isn't even like the hyper focus of this video, we're on a side quest now, giving her answers, right? Something needs to happen and change needs to take place. And the conservative movement in Canada is a little bit in a lull right now because, well, for many reasons. But if we just take, Pierre Poilievre as an individual and just put him on the sidelines, what's happening in Canada is scary because liberals are like, yeah, Trump is bad. America, we're going to boycott you. Eat shit. And now also conservatives, not necessarily you, certainly not me, are joining in on this, right? Like, look at what's happening in Ontario with Doug Ford. I know he's a liberal at heart, but he also is, the progressive conservative leader and the Ontario premier, which has millions of people. There's like 3.3 million in Toronto alone, right? Or the GTA. So there's a lot of people. The most people in all of Canada exists in Ontario, if I'm not mistaken. That's a lot of people, and he keeps winning, right? So obviously he reaches a lot of conservatives. If he's saying we need to stand up to Trump and blah, 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 that means that the liberals are saying it, and now some conservatives are saying it. And even the Conservative Party at the federal level have kind of been saying that. And with that unanimous messaging, you're not left with much room for like an opposition. And that's where the conservative movement in Canada is fizzling out, because we shouldn't be looking at anti-America. We should be looking at working with America, because the real threats out there in the world, in the big vast world, it's not America and it's not Trump. It's Russia and China and nuclear war, or going bankrupt, failing to produce a budget, like just that type of stuff. So it's interesting to see her tippy-toe around this. Of course, why would you want to openly say that you don't support your boss? But it would be nice to get a little bit of transparency and honesty from some politicians.
I'm looking forward to having him back in the House so he can be doing these announcements, and we're going to have a very strong fall with him at the helm. Yes. Wow. That is the canola tariffs.
Oh, hold on a second. We're going to have a very strong fall with him at the helm. So she didn't even lay down the groundwork to say that we're going to be able to take Mark Carney and dethrone Mark Carney in the next election. She only specifically said a strong fall, which, again, wording matters. When you're working on something behind the scenes, if you're not careful of your wording, it can slip through the cracks. And to me, I could just be looking for my confirmation bias, but trying to put my bias aside, to me, she's saying that, after the fall, so, January, when the leadership review happens, it might not be so favorable for Pierre. Why did she only say the fall? Why not the next several years until we have an election, right? Wording matters in politics.
Stating for Western Canada, and completely avoidable, I think, if the federal Liberal government had done what they promised to do during the campaign, which was fight for Canadians against unjustified tariffs. Last week, my party leader did announce, in the middle of a by-election, some pretty serious measures that will protect a wide variety of industries, but like, where are the Liberals on this, right? Where are they? Why aren't they out here today having a press conference on this? This matter needs immediate reaction. I can't, as a Western Canadian, I cannot stress how devastating this is to our economy and to our agricultural producers. So yeah, it's serious, and I expect immediate action out of the Liberal government.
Not just the Liberals, though. Like, this should have been, that's a weird frame to pause. This should have been given by Pierre Poilievre. Like, I appreciate Michelle Rempel-Garner stepping into the spotlight to do this, but when it comes to like the hierarchy of the Conservative Party, there's like Pierre at the top, and Michelle is not like second or third. She's, you know, not at the bottom. She's not a backbencher by any means, but this should have been done by Pierre. Even Larry Brock is actually a bit more of a pit bull on these particular issues. And so it's just interesting that it got passed on to Michelle Rempel-Garner, who I don't even know if she has a seat in like the shadow cabinet for Pierre. Like, I don't know if she's currently on the inside circle, which again, if Pierre wants to remain as the leader, then he has to lead. And I understand he's got a lot of shit going on with the by-election, but also part of that whole thing is like, hey, vote for me because I'm the leader of the opposition party and I can amplify the voice, but I'm not going to amplify the voice on like one of the biggest kind of issues in Canada right now, which is laxed laws for foreigners. Like, I don't know, man. That's kind of weird. This should have been done by Pierre, even if it didn't have to be in Ottawa at all. It could have just been done right from Battle River Crowfoot, from Alberta. It could have been done from Pierre Poilievre's car for all we care. But it should have been done from Pierre, don't you think?